Let's talk about my playbook for the next year. 5 rules, all practical, all built on what Buffett does, which is how I've built my entire investing career. Rule 1 is no leverage, no exceptions. Look, I always start with this rule because it's the one that saves you, and using leverage is what absolutely destroys you, right? Leverage is how people lose everything. So the reason Buffett could write that check to Goldman Sachs in 2008 was because he had no debt to service, none. And actually, by the way, the amount of leverage in the markets is often a sign that a crash is coming. And leverage is now at record highs, 1.2 trillion. That is how much fake money is propping up this market. And the translation of that is people are buying with borrowed money, so everything is way too expensive right now. That's why I don't use leverage, and that's why my portfolio is mostly boring stuff and not AI stocks right now. I sold my AI stocks at the end of 2025, and I don't regret it. Rule number 2, match the smart money's posture, not their exact trades. Look, we don't all have $380 billion to deploy. I mean, I wish I did, but I don't, right? And you probably don't. But we can match the shape of what Buffett is doing. The shape is high cash, low equity, very selective on quality. So you don't need to be 95% in T-bills. But the question worth asking yourself is, am I closer to Greg Abel, Warren Buffett, or am I closer to the Robin Hood degen buying call options on Palantir, right? There is a spectrum, and you should probably aim to be closer to the Buffett and Abel side of that spectrum than to the degenerate leverage gambler side of that spectrum. Which brings me to rule 3, be boring. Consumer staples, utilities, energy, big, dull, profitable companies that sell stuff people buy in a recession. And yes, I know Berkshire just sold some consumer products, but that was it was very specific. It was a couple of names where the brand power has slipped. So, you still have to think about what you're buying, right? The category itself is still strong and it pays good dividends, and it still works in a downturn because boring wins in a downturn. I've been saying this for a while, and the market has proven me right recently, by the way. Nobody really talks about it because Nvidia is making all-time highs, so that's newsworthy. Everyone's like, oh my God, look at Nvidia. But like I said, boring portfolios are outperforming Nvidia anyway. Not over the last 3 years, but right now, right? So if anything, boring is more exciting right now if you know where to look and if you know how to think about it. Anyway, rule 4, hold something that they can't print. I talk about this all the time. Look, cash is fine for ammunition, but cash isn't fine forever. The dollar dropped 9% in 2025. That's the worst year for the dollar since 2017. And they're openly running a weak dollar policy. I mean, that's what Trump wants. He's stating that he wants a weak dollar, right? So you want a bucket of stuff they can't physically print. Treasuries can be printed. The dollar can be debased. The stock market can be inflated by liquidity sloshing that sloshes back into it, right? But you can't mint a ton of gold or 1 million ounces of silver out of thin air. It's a physical asset. And I know technically there are paper versions of gold and silver, and that is a big problem. But still, the reality is the gold and silver you hold is a real asset. The point is all balance, right? Some cash for the dislocation, some metals for the debasement, some boring productive assets for the income in between. Rule 5, you don't need to do anything drastic today. Guys, look, this is the most important rule, and it's the one that nobody on YouTube wants to tell you. You have time. Crashes don't arrive on Tuesday at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. They unfold over months. And I think the US dollar is dying. I think debasement's only going to get worse. But that doesn't mean I'm selling everything, buying dollars, and making any drastic actions today. It doesn't mean I'm buying a bunch of seeds so I can sow my own fields and make my own crops in a depression, right? Buffett's been building his cash bowl for 14 straight quarters. He is not panicking. You shouldn't either. Be patient. I'll see you in the next one.